Sponsored by Surfshark. All of this has happened before, and all of it will happen again. That quote from Battlestar Galactica is never far from my mind, and it's the one that came to me as I shuffled through a folder of photos I shot over 18 years ago, on the very last dumbphone I ever carried as my solo daily driver. It was a time of more imitation than iteration, and also a time when traditional mobile phones were plateauing as a newer, smarter form of communicator was poised to take over. I'm Michael Fisher. The year is 2006, and this is the Samsung Blade. So yeah, when I say imitation, you can probably see what I mean. While in today's world, it's Motorola chasing Samsung, 2 decades ago it was the overnight celebrity of the RAZR that was the reason for this love. Because, hey, when it comes to a phone this sharp, the first cut is the deepest. Yeah? The point is, before we had the iPhone to endlessly point back to as the product that revolutionized the mobile industry, it was 2004's RAZR V3 that first changed everything, by proving people would pay a premium for a head-turning design. Just like today, rivals were quick to follow in the footsteps of the hot new thing, and the fastest of those fast followers was Samsung, which dropped this phone first in its home market of South Korea in May of 2005 as the SCH V740. The nascent tech blogosphere of the time reported on this phone as the RAZR reboot it truly was, by calling it by what appears to have been its codename, Blade. Alas, by the time it came to the US in the spring of 2006, the Blade would be forced to ditch its edgy nickname for Sprint's more straight-laced A900. That brought it in line with Sprint's earlier A500, A600, etc., from a more sensible era when A models were top tier instead of entry-level, and the 900 really delivered there. See, the first Motorola RAZR had to make all kinds of compromises to fit in its svelte casing. A very low-res VGA camera, a muted display, and a paltry 5 megabytes of storage. Not enough for an MP3 player even if the phone had one. The A900 beat the RAZR in all these areas. Even at this point, Samsung was already known for its excellence in displays, and it knew how to show them off too, with a glossy, jelly bean-like aesthetic to the system menus that makes good use of the 262,000 color TFT LCD, bright enough for outdoor use even in 2024, at least on a cloudy day. I love these little system animations too, and this drippy soundscape. I mean, could this be any more mid-noughties? Not content to beat Motorola merely on the display, Samsung endowed the A900 with a media player and about 50 megs of storage, though this was only enough for roughly an album's worth of MP3s at the time, and buying tunes from Sprint's music store would rock you $2.50 per track, in a time when iTunes was still only charging $1 a song. That's probably why I have no memory of ever using the A900's music player, while my 30-gig iPod video from the same year continues to soldier on to this very day. At least the media button's made for a handy way to wake the cover display. To Sprint, the MP3 functionality was just one way the A900 could drive PowerVision, the suite of online features and services it used to set itself apart from competitors by leveraging its then speedy EVDO network, up to 700 kilobits per second, fast enough for mobile TV if you've got the pockets for it. Sadly, the once trailblazing CDMA network that gave Sprint its all-digital, all-PCS marketing tagline was sunset by Sprint's new owner T-Mobile in March of 2022. So my eBay-acquired A900 here has no network to which to call home on either of its 2 bands. Thankfully, my friends at PhoneScoop continue to earn their reputation for excellent archival skills, and you can still read their in-depth A900 review, which I'll link in the description. Among the universal takeaways from reviews of the time, appreciation for the removable battery, because you'd need more than one to make it through a day. But that was true of the RAZR too. That's already an impressive amount of dunking Samsung did on Motorola, especially considering the A900 was almost as slim and also made of metal, still a rarity in those days, with a hinge that snapped authoritatively both open and shut. But where the blade really cut deep was in the camera, a 1.3 megapixel unit that embarrassingly outclassed the RAZR's 0.3 megapixel shooter, while also packing a trick that Samsung had used to great effect on its A600. You could spin it. That meant you could take easy selfies, in an era before the term had even made it to the mainstream, on either the main screen or the cover display. If this feels a lot like a modern, foldable flip phone, yep. Remember that Battlestar quote we opened with. The phone's status and notification light doubled as a camera flash, and as long as you remembered to keep that recessed camera lens free of the dust that inevitably accrued within, you could actually get some decent photos for the time. Digital pack rat that I am, I happen to have a handful of pics I shot on my own A900 some 18 years ago. I'll share them right after this. If you're tired of hearing about Surfshark, I get it. After all, the company has been my sponsor for 4 years. But if you think about it, that's a good thing. It means Surfshark has done its job of keeping me and its customers safe while browsing the web all over the world. You also might have noticed that I haven't taken a sponsorship from any other VPN company since I started. And that's not because I can't. It's because I haven't felt the need to use anyone but Surfshark. In addition to securing my connection on Wi-Fi networks all around the world, it also guarantees I can still access media and services that might otherwise be restricted by the country I'm browsing from. If that sounds useful to you, secure your privacy with Surfshark. Enter coupon code MrMobile for an extra 3 months free at surfshark.deals/MrMobile. A beautiful sky on a sad day. The view from my favorite seat at the dive bar we went to because we could afford it. And the only 2 clear photos of me as a Sprint phone salesman, which if you're a subscriber, you've seen many times. All these were shot on my personal A900 in the waning years of my college career, and it will come as no surprise to hear that they conjure a measure of nostalgia. I still remember the new feeling of freedom that came with being able to capture moments of my life as they happened, despite having left my camera at home. Watching the summer sunrise on a 3.5-mile walk home from the local dive bar in my Long Island hometown, then catching up on some of the lost sleep in a backyard hammock later in the day. Driving to Williamsburg, Virginia for an audition in a Starbucks that would lead to a 5-year voiceover career and my eventual move to Boston. Birthday lunches, tender moments, behind-the-scenes shots, actors reading their own reviews, spying on friends buying wedding bands for their secret engagement. But even without the emotional subtext encoded within each of these, they're notable just for the look and feel that places them in a very specific digital time. Back in Norfolk at the annual Harbor Fest, the underexposure, digital grain, and borderline sepia tone grade just screams 2006. And if you thought Samsung phones of the 2020s have shutter speed issues, well, I'm here to tell you it ain't a new problem. At least automatic exposure and zoom have gotten better. This, believe it or not, is Def Leppard. And in a final salute to 06, there's a dedicated option in the menu to upload pictures to a local retailer like Ritz Camera or Long's Drugs for printing. So why do we remember the RAZR and not its rival? Well, ultimately, phones, like people, are more than the sum of their parts. While the A900 was the superior phone in many ways, it was also second on the scene, with a less iconic design and availability confined to a single, not very popular carrier. Motorola would also quickly follow up its original RAZR with a fully fleshed-out lineup of 4-letter models, swiftly closing the feature gap with Samsung even as competitors like Sanyo arrived on the scene with even more shameless derivatives, like the Katana. And most critically of all, dumbphones were about to be done. BlackBerry was exploding in popularity as it transitioned from enterprise to a consumer focus. Palm was pushing through a last gasp of low-margin expansion before a big reinvention. Windows Mobile was bringing incredible capabilities to all kinds of form factors. And yes, the iPhone would arrive in 2007 to drive home the point the original RAZR proved. You don't have to do everything. You just need to do a few important things well. At least to start with. So, After a respectable year-plus on shelves, the A900 got some price cuts and one last act as a spin-off phone for ESPN Mobile under the moniker of Samsung Ace, before quietly fading into history. This is a cycle that's due to start again, as smartphones plateau just as their feature phone forebears did, and those of us still chasing the high of what's next strain our eyes to see what might replace them. In the meantime, I'll continue to take what comfort I can from a time when cameras spun, ringtones rocked, and phones were fun. In case you missed it, folks, Samsung just launched another big deal of a phone, and I spent way too long in San Jose trying to cover it. Check out MrMobile's review of the Galaxy S24 Ultra right here on the channel, and please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Samsung is a subject of these videos, by the way, not a sponsor. The company had no editorial input, copy approval, or early preview of this video. The lone sponsor is Surfshark. Until next time, from Michael Fisher, Captain Two Phones on Threads, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.